Today, we're talking about mindful aging and how we can nurture brain health in our aging loved ones and even in ourselves. The first thing I'd like to talk about are brain workouts. Now, we can't look at the brain and say, drop and give me 10. That would be silly, right? But what we can do are things that stimulate the brain. So, just a couple of examples crossword puzzles. My granny loved crossword puzzles. She lived to be 97, and when she passed away, she was sharp as a tack. Now, was it all due to crossword puzzles? Probably not, but she crocheted. She loved to do cross stitch. So there were other things that she was doing to stimulate her brain. Plus, she had those social interactions at church and with her family. So anything that stimulates the brain is going to help the memory, recall, retention, those kinds of things. Super important. Learning a new skill. That could be anything. It could be a hobby. It could be, like I mentioned, knitting, cross stitch, sewing, any of those things. It could be for men. I have a friend, her husband loves to fly fish, so he loves to make the little, are they called flies? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if you know. But the part that goes on that he casts into the water, he loves to make those. That's a great hobby, great activity. Learning a new language, if they want to learn a new language, that's something else. Play an instrument, perhaps. Anything that's challenging to the brain, that's awesome. And it also stimulates the neuroplasticity of the brain. So great idea. I think learning an instrument or a language would be awesome. Social engagement, that is another way that we can nurture brain health, because when you have that social exchange with people, even if you're an introvert, we're human beings and we do enjoy that piece from time to time, being with others. So what it does is it stimulates the verbal exchanges, that social communication piece. So you're working on those skills. It also works on the social cognitive piece for social settings, keeps that sharp so they can have those exchanges and be quick on their feet in terms of their mind. And just that emotional well-being of being part of a group or having a conversation with another individual. That's very much stimulating for the brain. So that's super important that they have those social engagements from time to time. Physical exercise is another great one. I talk about that a lot on this podcast. Just the fact that as we age, we need to be eating more protein to maintain muscle mass, build muscle mass, and to work on bone density. Super important. But exercise also benefits us in a cognitive way. It's, we release endorphins. It's like a dopamine hit. You feel great. Maybe not during the activity always, but by the end of the exercise activity, whatever that is that you're doing, I don't know about you, but I always feel great and so excited that I did whatever it was that I just completed. Same for the aging parent, right? They participate. There's a reward at the end for that. Not only will they be more fit physically, they'll be more fit cognitively. They can go to gyms. Most gyms now have activities specifically for seniors. I think there's a program called Silver Sneakers. I believe that's right. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Swimming, they could go running. If your parent is fit enough to run and to do it safely, they could do that. Biking is another great activity to get out in the community. Just anything that gets them that's appropriate for where they are physically and cognitively is going to help their mental health and nurture their brain. Now, I did want to mention this. There are brain training apps. I know that there are people that love to be on the computer, and, there's nothing wrong with that if you enjoy that. And what those apps, there's a lot of the apps that are available, actually. I did find one I want to share with you guys, but what they do is they target memory, attention, and problem solving, which is amazing. The one that I found, let's see, it's called, I believe it's pronounced Cognifit. If I'm saying that wrong, my apologies, but it's COGNIFIT. And they actually offer personalized brain training programs, and they tailor it to the individual. So if you're having deficits, you start to notice an area, let's say in your recall, then they target that specifically, and then periodically they assess how you're doing. So if you have a family member that loves to be on the device, kind of like the kids, they like to be on those devices, then maybe look into getting them something like that. And they can do the crossword puzzles and all kinds of things like that on a device as well. But sometimes I think it's better the hand to paper when you're doing those things. That is just the movement in the brain. It's just, I think that's better than the devices. This is my personal opinion. The power of stories. I love this one. One of my favorites. I grew up in a house and in a family that loved to tell stories. I love a good story and emphasize to, and I think the name of this program, Generational Guardians, I love this piece because it emphasizes sharing from generation to generation to generation. My granny loved to tell stories. And what happens when you tell stories is you're engaged, you're recalling, you're stimulating your memory, you're working on nurturing your brain health. So encourage your parents to share with you, your kids, and if they have great grandkids, pass those stories along. That it's a treasure, and you don't even realize it at the time that it's happening. I'll give you an example. My granny loved to tell when she first was married to my grandpa. I never met him. His name was Frank James. No joke. Not the criminal, not the outlaw. And she married him, and when he would go work in the fields and come in for lunch, she would make him his favorite desserts. I mean, the lady might make 2 cakes and a couple of pies. And she would say how he loved this kind of pie and he loved this, and how he would tell her it was so yummy, and he thanked her. You know, she was so appreciated that he appreciated her. And a lot of times we would be making something and that would stimulate that memory, and she would tell that story. So I treasure all her stories that she told me over the years. Another quick example, my dad, every birthday, he would tell the story of the day I was born. Every year, you know, they brought you out, you had a handful of jet black hair, and your eyes were so big and brown, and they looked as big as silver dollars. And I always told him I was just glad to be out of there, you know, like Mama didn't want to let me out, but I was just glad to be free. And we would always laugh. And, you know, I think back about that. You don't realize how important those stories are until they're no longer here to tell the story. I remember that first birthday after Daddy passed away, after he broke his hip. And I thought, man, what I wouldn't give to hear that story again. I wish I would have recorded it, and I never did. So record your people. I have video of my dad, but it's all VHS tape, which I need to have changed over. If you know what the best system is to take a VHS tape and put it to something where anybody could watch it, let me know in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. Now with my mom, much easier. She lived many years after Daddy passed away. And so I had my phone. So of course, you know, video, and lots of pictures. And that leads me to the next thing that you can do with your loved ones are memory albums or videos. Going back to the video, we would go every year, my granny, everybody went to her house for Christmas, the holidays. That was just what we did. And my aunt, great aunt, her sister, they used to, at family reunions, they would take video on the old reel-to-reel. Well, they transferred it to VHS, so we would always watch those, and we would laugh and talk. And, hey, there's Johnny. Look at Howard's carrying Pam. Her legs are to his knees. You know, ha ha, we'd laugh. Great memories. But also for the older people, like Granny, she was remembering all that. So she was just getting stimulated. You know, she was happy and joyful, laughing, but it was also stimulating memories, and she was recalling events, and it's just good. It's just good. The albums are awesome as well, especially as your parent maybe is declining in their memory. So my mom, she had dementia, but she always knew me, but we always lived kind of in the past. You know, there just became a point where that's where we lived. Or if we were together, it literally was whatever was happening at that moment or the past. You know, there was no, hey, what did you do at work today? None of that kind of conversation. So I loved pictures because we could have a conversation about the picture because she would remember. And so we talk about we'd look at old pictures, but we'd also look at new pictures of she and I. So anytime I would go get her, which was all the time, on the weekends especially, and we go get ice cream, go to lunch, we'd always take selfies. And she's beautiful white hair. So I would show her the picture. And she's, Pam, who is that old white-headed lady? And I'd say, well, Mom, you know, who do you think it is? She said, well, it's not me. I don't have white hair. And I would take a picture of her in the moment and show her. And she's like, oh, no, you've got to go get Chocolate Kiss and get my hair colored. So it's a cute, fun moment. You know, she wasn't irritated or agitated. We were laughing about it. But just having those exchanges and being able to have a back and forth about the topic, and we all know what we're talking about, I think it's super important. And if they if they've not been diagnosed with anything, but you notice they're having a little memory lag, pictures are a great way to work on recalling names and where you were and what you were doing and those kinds of things. And the past could have been yesterday. The past doesn't mean 10 years ago always. It could be, well, let's talk about what we had for lunch yesterday. She and I would do that too. I would take a photo of what we had for lunch. And then maybe even by the end of the day, I would say, well, what did we have for lunch today? And just see if she could remember. And then I would show her. So there's a lot of things that can help to stimulate, as much recall and retention as possible, depending on, how healthy their brains are at that time. And that's why it's so important to come at these things from a proactive, preventative stance so that we're not trying to make up time. We're trying to maintain or improve on that brain health. Physical health, super important, but so is brain health. It is very, very important. Quality sleep, I don't think that's talked enough about. They say right now, I believe in this, the research states that, or the last couple of things that I read said 7 to 9 hours is what we should have. So on average, 8 hours a night. And just because we're in bed doesn't mean we're sleeping. And just because we're sleeping doesn't mean we are getting good sleep. Are you in REM? I mean, when I look at my watch and it says I have 5 minutes, well, then I didn't sleep well. I maybe was out for 8 hours, but I didn't sleep well. So that's not good for our brains, our brain health. So we need to figure out how can we sleep better. And if they are not sleeping, it certainly affects them as they age. No sleep can cause a cognitive decline, a shift in who they are, and it's no fun to watch. So whatever you can do as a family to help make sure they're sleeping and sleeping well, that they're not sleeping in that light phase of sleep all night, which is what happens to me sometimes. There is a physician, and I can't recall her name right now, but I'll try to put it in the comments when I put this all together for you guys. Check her out. She is on YouTube. Her area of expertise was not sleep, but she was having people come to her with all these sleep problems. And so now the last 12, 14 years, all she's done is in the area of sleep. Why are we not sleeping? And what she's found is our brain and our gut are connected. And they called the gut the second brain. So she's saying that they're connected in such a way that if we can get our Bs, what she calls them the Bs, in your gut, your vitamin Bs in your gut, where they need to be at the levels they need to be, and your vitamin D levels at the level they need to be, then you will sleep well. So I will try to put her name in here. My apologies, I can't recall it right now, but I will put it in the notes so that you guys can look her up. Great information. I would love to have her on the podcast in the future. So that's a goal, to have her on and have her share her. I mean, it's a wealth of information. Amazing. When my dad fell and broke his hip, just another thing about sleeping, he was so off track. He wasn't sleeping. So that meant none of us slept because they lived with me. They lived with me at the time. And he would just ramble at night. And of course, he was just off his rocker. I mean, for lack of a better term, he was just Looney Tooney. And I took him everywhere. We went from one doctor to the next doctor. They sent me to a cardiologist, and I'm thinking, why are we here? Okay. But I went because I'm thinking, well, maybe he will lead me to where we need to be. And I'm researching, I'm looking online, there was less online at the time when Daddy broke his hip. He passed in 2007. There was information out there, but not nearly the amount of information that we have now. And I'm in healthcare. And it was hard on us. I knew a lot of things that were available, but when he couldn't sleep and he would ramble at night and he was so confused, I just was at a loss. I was at a loss, and I don't want you to be at a loss. So we finally made our way to a gerontologist, and he was able to get Daddy back on track. We had him for about 4 months. Daddy had all the marbles in the bag. Daddy went to outpatient therapy with my good buddy Donna, who's a physical therapist, and they did great, but unfortunately he was having TIAs, then he would fall, hit his head, so cognitively he was able to get back on track. So if your parent isn't sleeping, or they change their meds and they begin to not sleep, or they are very confused, I would get a referral to a gerontologist. He helped us, and I was so grateful. We had another 4 months with Daddy. It was my real daddy. He knew everything that was going on and what we were doing, and we were able to enjoy that time together before, things became tumultuous again. So nurturing that brain is so important. And then once we realize, oh, we're off, something's off, what can we do to help to regain that? How can we correct things? And I do think in the world that we live in, it's here, let's take care of this and let's cover this symptom and this, that, or the other. But we never really get to the root cause. And that's why I really love the lady, the doctor that's working on the sleep piece. She really wants to help people. And it's simple. If it's getting your B vitamins and your D vitamin, I don't want to minimize what she's doing by just making it that simple. But it's like not this huge complex, issue. If we could just get this straight, and she has a whole program on how to help you to do that. And I think that's awesome. Um, I think that people are looking for more natural ways of how they can impact not only physical health, but cognitive health, how to nurture brain health. Another thing is eating, eating well, eating, foods like salmon. I wish I liked salmon. I can't get past the smell. Do you like salmon? Drop it in the comments. My family, we're catfish people, okay? I'm sure you could hear that in my speech. It's country catfish every birthday and anniversary. It was delicious. But salmon was just not, all my friends love it. I just never could eat it. So I take a supplement. And when you take a supplement, just make sure where it's from and make sure it's a good quality. There's certain nuts that you can eat or have your parents eat that help with brain health as well, just to help nurture that. So make sure they're eating plenty of good protein sources, some fruits and vegetables. If they can do the exercise and move, do activities, cognitive activities for the brain, the hobbies, exercise. You don't have to do all of the things that we talked about today, but if you could do those things, I think it'll make a world of difference in maintaining and maybe even improving or even pulling someone back that was starting to have a little bit of a decline. But you implemented some of these things and they were like, oh, yeah, the brain's like, hello, yes, I'm stimulated. Okay, let's do this. So I hope these were helpful for you guys. I hope you got some benefit out of this. If you did get value out of this video, hit that thumbs up and please feel free to share with someone that might benefit from it. And remember, try and enjoy the journey, and we'll see you in the next one.